All right, welcome to today's class. And so today we stopped at variables, why we need variables in Python. Please do let me know if you have any question at any point in time. I will check the chats as we progress in the training. All right, so we talked about variables in Python, why exactly we need variables. And we also try our hands, declaring variable or initializing variable, as the case may be. All right, so variables, are actually very easy to, initialize or declare in Python. Like I said, it's very important to give your variables a very good descriptive name. And by descriptive, I mean, if you are naming, probably you want to say A is equal to Japan, right? Japan is a country. You can, instead of using A, you can say country is equal to Japan, right? Because it also helps someone who is going to review your code to understand exactly what you're doing without taking too much time. All right, so there are certain rules you have to abide with if you want to, initialize or declare a variable in Python. And one of the, there are several rules, as you can see, right? One of the rules is that, a variable must start with either a letter or an underscore, right? So your variable cannot start with a number, right? If we're going to try all of this, and you're going to see that we would have error if we do not follow all these rules, okay? And your variable name can only contain alphanumeric characters and underscore, right? So what are alphanumeric characters? Alpha numeric. Alpha means alphabets, and numeric means numbers, right? So alphanumeric basically means your alphabets, your A to Z, right? And then numeric means 0 to 9, right? It can be 100. That's still like a combination of 0 to 9, right? So every number is made up of 0 to 9, right? So remember the principle behind the rules behind naming a variable. Number one is that you can only start a variable name with an underscore or a letter, right? You cannot start it with a number, don't forget, right? Even though you can have numbers in between your variable names, right? Variable names are also case sensitive, all right? So by case sensitive, what that means is that small letter country, for example, is different from when you have country, with a title case. So this is a title case, right? It means like the first letter is, in capital letter or uppercase, right? So these three things are actually different things. We're going to try all of this in Python, right? And you will see that they are, different, right? So let's go ahead to our collab notebook and then do that from there. Okay, so this is our collab notebook, and we'll look at this. Okay, all right. So rules for naming variables in Python. Okay, the first rule is your variable must start with an underscore or a character. So let's look at it. So remember what we did last week. This should be quite easy, right? So we are saying name is equal to Kenny, and then this automatically brings out what we've saved, Kenny to be, right? Name to be, right? So right now we can see that we have name as the, elements or our value right here, and then name as the variable. So we called variable here again, and then variable is returning the value we have saved in, in the variable name. So let's start, with a number. So for example, I'm going to do this. I'm going to say code. So you can click on either code here. So if you just hover on the line that separates your code, you will see code and text, right? You can either click on code here or you come here, right? For me, I'm, just this looks quite close, and then I just use any of this. All right, so let's try to, name a variable by starting with a number. So for example, we have, let's say 5 name, right? 5 name, is equal to, let me use a name here. Let's say Folaromi, for example. So I remember Folaromi is a string, and that's why I'm using quotes, right? So just trying to remind us what we did last time. So if I click on run here, so let me increase this screen, okay, so that everyone can see clearly. So if I click on run here, right, you can see we have an error. This is giving us a syntax error, right? So it means something in our name is totally wrong, right? And then Python. So one of the thing as a programmer that you have to understand is you have to know how to read your code, and also definitely you will always have errors. Even as someone who is very familiar with Python, I still write some codes and then I still have error, probably because of my mistake, like a syntax error, for example, right? Ability to read a code, understand the code and the issues in your code is actually very important in the programming world, right? So that's basically called debugging. So right now I can see that it's pointing to this and say, I think there's something wrong with this variable name, right? And if you check the rules for naming a variable, you can see that starting with a number will definitely give us an error. So let's try and end with a number and then run this. Right, you can see we don't have any error, right? So if I click on code now and I want to see if this will return this Folaromi value to me, right? So I'm going to say name 5, and then you can click on Shift Enter to run your code, or you click on this, right? So if you click on this, so it gives us Folaromi, right? So you can see the first row, we broke the first row, which was, not starting with a number, and then it returned an error for us, right? A syntax error, right? And then we corrected that by, ending the variable name with a number instead of starting it, and then we can see that we no longer have any error. So a variable name can only contain alphanumeric characters, right, and underscores, right? So your variable names would not allow special characters. So for example, so I noticed that we might take a longer time writing the codes. So I did that before the class, but then I will still run some codes and so we can see. So for example, I want to say, let me say island in Lagos, or I say something like island. Let me just say a brand, okay, for example. So a brand like MTN is a brand, so just going to run this. And then if I click type brand here, so what I'm saying is that after you assign the value of MTN to this variable brand, return the brand, right? So this automatically will return MTN if this is right. So let's imagine I have, a special character. Remember that your variable cannot contain special characters, right? So let's imagine I have something like brand, then I have maybe a pound sign and then D equal to, let's say, let's say glow, for example, right? And then I also do this just like I've done. So if I do this now, and then I click on run, right? You can see again, this is going to give me like a syntax error, right? So this is how you know that, oh, you cannot use special characters in here. So let's try and change this to an underscore. Let's see what happens. Then let's run this. Okay, so does anybody know what happened here? So I'm going to show you something. So right now it's saying name error, right? The first time we saw syntax error, right? And that was because our syntax was wrong. Now this is saying name error, and let's read the code together and understand how to debug this, right? Is where we can see that brand underscore name is not defined. So what does that mean, right? Whenever you do something like this, you are defining the variable. So I'm defining this variable brand to be equal to this value, MTN, right? So right now I typed brand here, BRAN underscore D. And here I'm saying BRAND underscore D. There are two different names, right? So right now, this is basically saying I cannot give to you what I don't know before now, right? So that's basically what is happening here, right? So if I correct this, for example, let's correct this by removing this brand and then running this. And say we have glow, right? So you can see how we have to follow these rules, right, to name our variables. You have to keep this at the back of your mind. If not, you will keep running into some little errors, okay? So like I said, for example, we have brand here, okay? We have brand here. And then let's see. So we have brand here. So if I do something like brand in capital letter, so title case, this is title case because the first letter or first character in the word is starting with an uppercase, or yeah, an uppercase. So if I do brand, right, do you think it will return MTN? Let's think for a second, right? So brand here, of course, they have like the same character, BRAND, right? But their case is different. This is not LFC. So by case, I mean like what is made up of, right? So you can see B here is, capital letter B, right? And here is what small letters, right? So if I run this, for example, we should get a name error. Okay, exactly, name error. So you can see, number one, you are understanding the kind of errors we even have in Python, right? The first one we saw was a syntax error, right? And the second one is a name error. So if someone asks you, what do you understand by syntax error? You should be able to explain that it's when, you do not have you don't have a proper syntax, right? So that's, or a wrong syntax. That's basically syntax error in layman terms. Okay, so moving on, let me see if we have any question. Okay, right. So I'm going to so I'm going to ask this very soon. All right, so moving on to data types. We have different data types in Python, and okay, you have different data types in Python. All right, so we have numeric data types. We have the text data type, we have binary, we have Boolean, we have sequence, we have mapping, we have sets, right? And we might not look at all of this, but once you get the concept, you would understand how to use these data types, right? And what specific use they will be having in Python. So for example, we're going to look at the int and floats data type for the numeric data type. So let's look at string, for example, right? String is a sequence of character, right? For example, I said brand is equal to MTN, right? Sequence of character, MT and N, they are, English alphabet, right? So they are each of those characters, right? So string is just a sequence of character. Basically, that's what it is. And how do you know a string in Python? To know a string in Python, it's either it is, enclosed in a single quotation mark or a double quotation mark, right? So if you have something like this, let's say, King Day, or let's say Fred, for example, that's a name, right? If I run the cell, it's output this this string for me, right? So this is how you know a string. Now, I just made a statement that said a string, you know a string by being it's enclosed in a single or double quotation mark, right? So if we enclose a number in quotation mark, does that make it a string? Obviously, yes, that makes it a string. So if you have something like this, for in quotes, this is basically, this has turned to a string, right? If you have 67, which is a number, right, on a norm, in quotes, this automatically turns to a string. So let's check how we can know the data type of anything we type into, our Google Colab, right? So we have a function called the type function, All right, so let's look at Fred now and let's see the data type it belongs to. So how you use a type function is by just typing type and then passing in. So you can see something here called args and quags. So basically this just means arguments, and this means keyword arguments. When we get to functions proper, we will look at args and quags and how to use it and what they mean, and certain rules to follow how you write these things. Okay, so we're just going to do it in the basic level for now. So look at Fred, right? Remember, Fred is a string. So we want to confirm the data type of Fred. So if I copy this and I paste it here, for example, and I run this, so this will return the data type of what we pass in, right? So you can see str. Str means a string type, right? Let's try for, let's see, a number, for example. So if I say 12, so I can just basically just say type 12, right? And then I run this, for example, right? You can see this returns int, right? This is an integer. So this is how you can easily know data type in Python, right? So, so these are just examples. Okay, yeah, so one last thing. If you have 12, for example, we can see 12 here is an integer. So let's try 12 enclosed in a quotation mark. So if I say 12, right? So if I do this, you can see it's a string, right? So you need to understand that if you see anything in quotation mark, that thing is a string, okay? So just to check that you guys are following, okay, I'm just going to call somebody random. Just tell me what is a string and what is not a string. So Ari, welcome. Please, you can unmute. If you can unmute yourself, Ari, and Babajide Akinola, you can unmute yourself. Okay. Yeah. So, who is unmuted? Ari. Is that Ari or Babatunde?
I'm unmuted. Babajide.
Okay. Okay, Babajide, sorry. Okay, so if I do something like this, if I say 4, 5, 3, 4, 5, what data type is this?
It's an integer.
Awesome. So so how do you confirm if it's an integer, right? I want you to prove to me that this is an integer. How do you quickly do that?
Oh, because it's not in quotes, I don't know.
Yeah, so I mentioned that to confirm or to just check the data type of anything, right? Just put that value inside a function called type.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
That's true.
just do type 3, 4, 5.
3, 4, 5. Yeah, I'm
then run this. Okay, you can see that's an integer. All right. So if I do something like this, if I say, okay, I'll just ask you this straight up. So if I say, what data type would I be expecting if I do this?
It's a string. A string.
Okay, awesome. All right, thank you, Akela. Ari, just to confirm, are you here? Okay, so moving on. All right, so integers, right? Integers are positive or negative numbers with no decimal points, okay? So integers can be negative, can be positive. Integers can, it can be 0, right? But without the decimal part, right? So for example, you have 2, like we've seen, we have 3, 4, 5, like we've checked. All of those are integers, all right? So they're used basically in arithmetic operations. We're going to get to that in a moment, okay? And for integers that have the decimal points, right? They are called floats, right? So either you call them decimals or you call them floats, right? So for example, I'm just going to try this out. So we already know what an integer is, right? So for example, 2 is an integer. So if I do 2 and then I check the type of 2, for example, that's an integer. We should expect an integer, right? So if I do 2.0, that's how you know it floats, right? This decimal part, right? So if I click on this, and then I type 2.0, for example, right? You would see the data type that will be returned, right? This is a float, right? So 2 and 2.0, based on data type, they are not the same thing. I think I have a message. Is there a difference between float and double? Okay. In Python, right? So you have different programming language, right? In Python, you don't have the double, data type, right? In other languages like JavaScript, like I think you also have double in SQL, right? So in Python, you only have floats, right? Basically, the difference between double, float, and the likes is actually like the number. So we have, I don't want to go deep into that. So basically, just know that in Python, you have only floats. Okay, so okay, all right. So I'll answer that. Okay, so moving on, we have seen integers, we've seen strings, and we've seen floats. So I'm just going to call one more person to see, okay. So please, if I call you, just take care of your screen. And in a moment, you'll be sharing your screen. So Emmanuel, you'll be sharing your screen. Just go to Google Colab and Oluwatobi, and then Oluwatobi, and then Oladayo. So the next 3 questions I'll be asking, you would share your screen and show us how to do these things, right? So as much as possible, I want to make this class very interactive so that people can learn, right? You can try your hands on these things and then you will see if you have any difficulties trying it out. Okay, so, all right, so moving on, I'm going to be calling you soon, so just try and set up your laptop and go to Google Colab. Okay, so I'm just going to copy this and share in. This is Google Colab. All right. So moving on. So we've checked variables, right? So let's look at this. So for example, I want to name my variable. Let's say animal, for example, is equal to, let's say, dog, right? I run this. I can check the type of so what we've been doing is we're checking the type of the value directly. So we can just check the type of a variable and I say type animal, right? You can see this is not in quotes. Why is it not in quotes? Because we've already assigned it to a string, right? So, and that's why this string is not in quotes. So if I run this, for example, I would have string. You can see I have no errors. Why? Because this already has been assigned a value of a string. So there's really no need for me to put this in quotes again, all right? So that's just to point that out, okay? So we've checked, integers, we've checked strings, we've checked floats, right? So moving on to Booleans. Booleans are basically a 1 or 0 situation, right? True or false. That's what Boolean means in Python, okay? Oh, okay. Please, for the next class, just try and download Zoom on your laptop. Okay, okay. So Boolean is just a true or false situation, right? When we say something is a Boolean, it can either be true or be false. So there's no in between the fence or sitting in between the fence. You can either be high or low, right? Can be average. Yeah. So okay, so Boolean, how you just declare Boolean is by typing true, right? So if you have something like this, true, and I want you to pay keen attention here. True is the first T is always in caps. So if you type true with small letter in Python, are going to have an error, right? Name error. So you can see all these little details. You need to, understand how these things work, and just put your mind to it. It's pretty easy once you start doing all of this. Okay, so you can see true. So if we're going to say the other one is false, right? So like I said too, false also starts with a capital letter, right? You can even see Python is, we call this Intellisense. So basically, it's tries to understand what you are trying to type, and then it gives you like suggestion of what you're trying to type. So this is basically called Intellisense. So you can see false, right? If we run this, right, you can see this is giving us false. So let's see who is going to share. Okay. Ari, are you available, Ari?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so we want to check the type of false. How are we going to do that? I want you to confirm to me that this is a Boolean. How are we going to try? How are we going to do that?
Do I have to share my screen?
Yes, please, if you want, have to learn. Yeah, sure.
All right.
Can you share your screen?
All right, let me share my screen.
Yeah, please do.
So at the moment, share my screen. The host disabled participant sharing screen. That's the error message I get.
You can try again now.
All right. All right, I'm sharing my screen now.
Yeah, okay. Next, Charles, please be ready to share your screen. So want to know, how to check the data type of false. How do we do that?
So you said we should type it should be in capital letter, that's the F, should be in capital letter, and then we run it.
Okay, so let me take you through the process, right? So how do you check? So for example, I say type in 12. How do you check that 12 is an integer?
All right. Type, sorry, 12.
Exactly. So this is giving us integer, right? So it's still the same thing. It's just basically the same thing you're going to do for any data type. So a type function, this type like typ is a function in Python that helps you to check the data type of any value you put into it. So we want to check the data type of false. Now, how do we do it? Any ideas?
No idea.
It's just what you've done, right? So you can see I intentionally did not do, so you might want to just, try. You've done for integer, I can see you've done for string. It's just the same thing doing for Boolean. So it's just by saying type and then putting in the value of Boolean.
Am I correct?
Yes, you're on the right track. Then type in false. So you can see Boolean in Python is denoted as BOOL, bool, right? So thank you for sharing your screen and explaining to the class. Okay, So that's about it, right? So if I want to check the, data type, right? I can say true, right? And then if I run this bool, right? Simple. Okay, so don't forget, I'm going to ask, random questions at the end of the class. What do you use to check data type in Python? Okay, it's the type function. Okay, so moving on to concatenation and how you do concatenation in Python. So you can do concatenation using the plus icon, right? So there are several ways to do concatenation in Python, but one of the major ways to do it is using plus. So like, like the addition sign, right? So concatenation, what exactly is concatenation? It basically means bringing two things together. So on the basic level, it basically means I want to take A and I want to take B and I want to bring it together. This is not addition. This is not adding A plus B together. I want to bring A and B, different entities, together, right? So concatenation does basically means combining a string, text, or any data without any gaps, right? So in Python, plus is what the sign you use for concatenation. Okay, so let's look at concatenation and how it is done. So for example, I want to say Kenny. Okay, so I say name is equal to Kenny, for example, and then I type, let's say I type, okay, car is equal to, let's say I drive a Benz, for example, right? So I want to, do something like Kenny drives a Benz. This is the output I want to see, right? So, and this is what you were given, right? And I want you to use this to produce this, right? You can see we're moving, forward bit by bit, right? So please, if you do not understand anything at any point in time, please call my attention to it. I would go back and explain. All right. So, and please, try and see if you can share your screen. Okay, so because I can call on you at any point in time to share a screen and then put us through exactly what we're doing. All right, so Kenny drives a car, right? If I want to do this, I'm going to just say, concatenation, right? So I can say, okay, let's start from the basic. Like I can say, for example, I want to do Kenny Benz, okay? Right, this is the output I want to see, okay? So I can do something like this. I already know Kenny, name to be what? Kenny, and I know car to be Benz, right? So I can say name plus car, right? So if I run this thing, I want you to look at what happens, right? So if I run this, for example, right? Name plus car. Okay, I'm here to run the cell. Okay, so you can see why that happened. So also to bring this up, Python looks at what you've, like I said, I've only written this code here. I did not run the cell. And then I ran the cell and then it's giving me an issue, right? So, like I said, you always, encounter errors, right? So if I run the cell now, you'll see it's going to work, right? So, but look at what we have. We have Kenny Benz, right? Clustered together without a space, right? So how do you include a space in Python, right? To include a space in Python, you use quotation mark. So you use quotation mark with a space in it, right? So this is not the same. It's not the same as this. Look at these two things closely. This has a space in it. We call that white space, right? And this does not have any space. This is called an empty string, and this is called a white space. There are two different things in any programming language, okay? So we will see how to use, both, right, with time. Okay, so if I want to add this, so I want this for output, right? But this is what I have if I, just do my addition, right? This space does not mean anything, right? If I put the space here and I still do candy plus car, it's still going to give me this. So this does not mean anything, right? In this situation, okay? So if I want to get this, for example, like I said, this is a white space, so I can do name plus, so I want to add a space in between. So that means I should introduce this symbol, which is a white space, right? So this, remember to put a space in between and then add it with what? Car, right? So if I do this, for example, and then I run this, you can see we have candy Benz, right? If I do this without the space, look at this. If I do this without the space, look at what will be returned. Candy Benz, right? So you can see that this quotation mark actually means something, right? It's actually different from this, right? This means a white space, and then this means an empty string in Python. Okay, so to move from there, we've looked at how to do basic concatenation, right? And imagine I want to do something like Kehinde drives a Benz, for example, right? So I can do something like this. I know that Kehinde is name. I'm just going to copy this so that we can see on the screen. I'm just going to copy this and run this. Okay, so Kehinde drives a Benz, right? That's the output I want to see, right? So I'm going to say name plus, remember, if I do plus drive, for example, so drive here, I'm yet to assign that to a variable, but then I don't need to assign that to a variable, right? Because I just do not want to assign that to a variable, right? So I can say plus, remember this is a string. Now you can see where the data types, okay, so you can see where the data type come to play, right? So drive is a string, right? Because it's a character, right? So if I want to have drive in there, right, I'm going to have something like okay, so if I want to have drive here, I'm going to have something like drives, then I'm going to have another concatenation symbol because I want to concatenate A, right? So I'm going to add, remember it is also a character, right? A string, right? So put A in quotes, and then I want to concatenate Benz again, right? I know my car is Benz, okay, right? So I can do that by just adding plus car. Now, look at what happens, right? We did not put any white space, and you will see our results. Okay. Okay, collab uses network, I guess. Okay, so just going to run this. Okay, so that's like one of the disadvantages of using Google Colab. It's has to use your internet, and then when your internet starts messing up, just going to do something else. Let's see. Okay, issues I have with so I'm just going to start up my Jupyter notebook. Anaconda. Okay. So what I'm about to launch is Anaconda. It's basically similar to Google Colab. So I don't know why this collab is Okay. Just to confirm, can everybody hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, I can.
Okay. My network. Let me switch my network. Okay, so this I started to mess up. Yeah, so basically this is Google Colab environment. And then basically we can just launch Google Jupyter Notebook. You see why you need to back up sometimes, you know, this thing's messy up. Okay, so we're just going to, you know, you can see it's pretty the same interface, right? So where we started from, so let's say name is equal to Day, and then we have car is equal to Benz, right? And I want to see, so you can see if I run name, if I run car, okay, and I want to see something like, you know, Day drives a Benz, right? So this is what I want to see. Okay, so we can just basically do this. You know, let me increase my screen size so I'm sure everyone can see. Okay, so going back to concatenation, right? You have a name and then you have car. Okay, so you can do something like this. Name, just going to copy it from here so we don't waste so much time. Okay. Okay, where's this guy? Okay, so just going to do this. So for example, we have name plus drives plus a plus car, right? If I run this, for example, you can see this is quite different from Google Colab. It does not have that run button here, but you can, you know, click on this, right? So remember what I said at the beginning of the class training, you have different IDEs, right? They basically do the same thing, just how they do it differs. Their interfaces differs. Okay, so if I click on run, for example, right, you can see this now, you know, everything is clustered, right? You can see Candy drives events here, right? So how can somebody help us to, can somebody show us how he or she is going to, you know, arrive at this particular point? Charles, are you on the call? Charles, are you on the call? Hola, Dio. I mentioned some names the other time. Please, can you unmute? Okay. Okay, so Candy drives the Benz. So you have something like this, right? If you need to, you know, bring in a white space, you do something like this. So please, I'm calling us not because I just want the class to be interactive, and number two, I want you to try these things out. It's quite simple.
Can somebody else try?
Yes, please. Someone else can try. It sounds really simple until you start trying it out, and then you get little errors.
Okay, but do I need to share my screen to?
Yes, please.
Okay, let me. Give me a minute, please. Sorry. Trying to.
Just to confirm, Charles, are you on the call? Hello, Charles, you're on mute. Can you unmute? Francis, you're on mute. Please just drop a comment if you are on the call. Just drop a comment in the chat box.
All right, Francis, I'm unmuted.
Okay.
Somebody's already showing his phone.
Let me just type it. Let me just assign it to. So,
You might want to move your cells up so that
Yeah.
people can easily see that. Just create
okay,
new cells.
let me use
Just-
this. Let me use this.
Yeah, yeah.
And Kende has a new car, right?
Yes, just use any, yeah.
Okay. Okay, I didn't put A. Sorry. As A. Can you hear me? Hello? Hello?
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear.
Okay. I think I didn't put A new car. I think, huh? Is this okay?
Yeah, awesome. Wanted to see your use of your use of white spaces. Yeah, awesome. Thanks,
All right.
Francis.
This is Jide.
Oh, Jide, thank you.
Okay.
Okay.